Hi guys, before we start the episode, we have something very important to share.
So a lot of research that we do for this channel is very important and dear to us. We want our facts to be as diverse, as on point as possible, and none of that would be possible without Wikipedia.
And Wikipedia is actually in a crucial state where they need money to run their operations, and they have a link up on all of their pages where you can just donate some money. And even as something as simple as 150 rupees will make a huge difference. And if you think, like if you've ever used Wikipedia and never donated, if you feel that they've at least given you 150 rupees of knowledge, please at least go donate that. Every rupee counts. You'll be doing not only us, but I think a large portion of the world a favor. Thank you so much. All right, welcome to Teak at a Bench Shorts episode number 8. This episode we will be looking at Google as a monopoly. This is part of a larger big tech series. Hopefully you've been liking this series. We just made the one on Facebook yesterday. Go give it a listen. Tell us what you think. As usual, Adi is here. Adi, say hello.
Yeah, so hi guys. So yeah, this is about our big tech, and slowly we are moving up the ladder of the corporate monopolies. Next episode is going to be on Amazon, and I think that's our last episode. Who knows? We might make a conclusion episode after that. Correct. There will be, maybe we should make one for Microsoft just in case. Get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they're not
before they become controversial. We should make them controversial.
Correct.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Google.
Today's episode is on Google as a monopoly. Before we get all there, Adi, do you use Google? When was the last time you used Google?
I don't know, like 20-30 minutes ago.
I think 20 seconds ago, because you wanted to know how to pronounce Beirut.
Oh yeah, we wanted to learn how to pronounce Beirut. So yeah, about 20 seconds ago. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Google is like I don't think you can go on for a day without using Google, right?
Yeah, you see that meme, right?
Google affiliated products.
Exactly. Yeah, and like that's what I'm saying. Right? So like whatever you do on the internet, there's an alarming stat that apparently all Google searches, 63% of those end up in a Google-owned website. Right? You want to know how to program. You live in India. It will give you a YouTube tutorial in Hindi on how to program, which is very powerful for the user, and that's why they use it. Partly the reason why Google has its dominance is because it's very useful. It gives you the relevant information very quickly. And
no, I think it's a lot more than that. Like, think about it, right? Google is so important for humanity. I don't think humanity could have progressed to this level without Google. Like, you go search, you could, I'm being very honest, right? Like, anything anybody wants to do, it starts with a Google search, and it has to be a Google search. Because let's say I want to start up a bookmaking company. Like, I'm going to make notebooks, and I go to Google and I search how to make paper. Google is going to Google's going to say, oh, look, there's a YouTube video which is going to tell you how to make paper. And Google is so brilliant because Google is going to redirect me to a YouTube video, and I don't need to watch the entire YouTube video. For some reason, YouTube, it'll tell me start from 2 minutes and then end at 3 minutes. That is the only important part of the video. The rest is just filler. And it redirects me to that page, and I watch the 1 minute video, and I learn how to make paper. And then now I need to know how to market this. And then I'm like, types of paper. And then I'm going to search types of paper, and then it's going to say that show me a short post of the Wikipedia article saying these are types of paper. I don't even need to click into Wikipedia for that.
Yeah, true.
That is the beauty of Google.
And like you said, no, humanity, I think the last 20 years of human progress, large portion is just dedicated to Google on some level.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I've always believed like for me it's so important. A person who knows English, who knows how to use the internet, Imagine a person who doesn't know to use the internet or doesn't know English. Google is a lifesaver. Like if I want to learn how to code, and I'm like, how to code uh, Spanish, and then a normal search engine is going to tell me how to code in Spanish, but Google is going to tell me how to code the video, and I want that video in Spanish. Google already knows that. That's how smart Google is. It's a smart search engine before being just a
Yeah,
search engine.
like Google actually, right? It's really no longer a search engine. It's more of a, it'll give you the right information. And one
Yeah,
thing I want to correct you, right? Like this is what people don't think about. It's not that not only you know English, not only do you not use the internet, you actually don't know how to use the internet. Do you know which website, the IP address or their domain name to type, or how you can get to some website that sort of curates all of this and brings it to you? This complicated technology that is the internet, it
mm.
simplifies it for you and presents it to you from like a simple search bar and one button no one uses called I am feeling lucky. That's
Oh
all.
yeah,
It abstracted that whole complex mess that used to be a terminal command, and you'll get one weird bunch of text data, and you have to sort of scroll in the terminal command and read websites. That it sort of brought into, and then when the web browser came, it used the indexing, and then it moved on to relevant information, like you said, right, where you are, judging by what it knows about you. It's a genuine net positive, right? Like I think something like Facebook and Instagram, you could say, right? It's not it's not really done a lot of good things them being together, but Google as a conglomerate is a net positive, at least for the consumer. It definitely is, and the fact it's free, right, with its relevant advertising as the only cost. In my opinion, that's a worthy trade-off. Maybe not the amount of data they take from me, but the fact that it's only uh, uh, relevant advertising, targeted advertising, I think it's a worthy enough trade-off. What do you think, Adi?
actually, honestly, right? You guys remember when you used to watch TV and you used to see so many absurd ads that have no importance to you.
Correct.
Like today, we don't see those kind of ads because all the ads we see is like, you at least have like a minute of reflection. Wait, this is quite interesting. This is a quite
Hmm.
interesting product because they are showing you that ad
Yeah.
personalized, like
Correct.
individualized, like it's for you. So it has to be something that you would like. Technically, that's better.
Yeah. Like it drives
Like,
consumerism, and it doesn't really work with countries without purchasing power, but it's still better than just plain old dumb advertising.
yeah,
Like the only like this is the best TV advertising has gotten. Upinyanam. Whilst most people argue that is amazing, which I am part of that gang, but that's the best it's gotten.
yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, why ads are so bad today and why they're slowly getting better? Uh, that is a topic for another podcast. We
correct,
actually have some
hundred
research on
percent.
that, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's for a different time. But right now, if you guys don't know, most of the ads on most websites are either placed there by this website by this company called Adscape or AdMob. Both those companies are also owned by Alphabet. Alphabet is the company that owns Google and YouTube. But yeah, that is why we are here talking about Google. So yeah,
yeah,
Puri, why is Google in the big four in the congressional hearing?
yeah. So now we spoke how Google is a net positive for us, right? But there's a question that needs to be asked. Yeah, sure. Google made it easy to access the internet. Like a lot of people, like 90% of the people on the internet use Google. That's actual fact. And 100, by the way, 100% of the internet is not used for the internet, like not used for searching. So 90% of the internet is being used for Google search. Just think of that fact. Let that set in for a while. But there's a question to be asked, right? Yeah, they're really good, but really, is there any other way that you can access the internet? Like, Adi, you're an average consumer, right? You're a or a semi, like
Mm.
just slightly techy average consumer. Even for you, how else would you access the internet without Google? Obviously, you're not going to use Bing. So what else?
Yeah. Is there another way? Like, if I want something, is there another way to find anything other than Google? If I want, okay, if I either search for things on Google or YouTube. Honestly, it is both just Google. So there's no other way. You have to use Google, or you
Exactly.
could use Tor browser and go to the dark web, but
Let's-
which
Or
is
like, or don't be that badass. Just use DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo is another search engine that doesn't serve targeted ads, but is privacy focused. But yeah, we digress.
yeah.
Exactly. So your closest thing is something like DuckDuckGo, and DuckDuckGo isn't even like so. Like we saw the effect Spotify had on Apple, right? Spotify is a big
Hmm.
player. They had not even a scrape. They had like a ding sound with Apple. DuckDuckGo, a techie had to name drop, and you were like, "What is this random shit this guy is talking about?"
Hey, who's that?
I was the techie. DuckDuckGo is what I name dropped.
Oh,
Thanks.
but how, how did DuckDuckGo actually become famous? Actually, I know DuckDuckGo exists.
DuckDuckGo only became famous because people started hating on Google. Because public
Oh
opinion
wow.
is slowly like I think a large portion of these congressional hearings, right, that happened. We'll delve into one particular example of the congressional hearing just in a bit, but a large portion is just bring about these things to the public and change public opinion to make them
Hmm.
look like these are not some beautiful utopian digital utopias that we're living in, right? Just like how the government is questioned when you think that you're living in utopia, but the government is actually being very authoritarian. Uh, a similar thing needs to be happen. A similar thing needs to happen where you need to question these companies and hold them accountable, which is what sort of happened in the congressional hearing. And I want to give the example of Yelp and why Google's abusive nature of power. Right? Uh, Yelp used to be a company like Zomato, and like you noticed, I said used to because they don't exist anymore, essentially. And Zomato, like, we go to restaurants, we take pictures, we put reviews up, that kind of thing. This was there back in the day itself. And Yelp was a cutting edge piece of technology back in the day. It was amazing that people could do this. Like, let me give you context of how amazing this was. Apple, the hip company, the fashionable technology company, showcased Yelp as a product, as a app inside the App Store during the iPhone launches, during the iOS launches, because Yelp was a great example of what uh, modern technology could be to the consumer. Right? It was really cutting edge. They were making a lot of money. But then what Google started doing was, let's say I typed in something like Junior Kupana, and you know how now you see Junior Kupana location at the closest Junior Kupana next to you and the reviews about it, Google
Hmm.
reviews. Initially they were Yelp reviews. Okay.
Hmm.
And the thing is, people went to Yelp for the reviews, but after a point, they had things like Zomato where you could pay and become a member, make reservations, and all of those things, right? But they actually went there for the reviews. But the second they saw the reviews on Google, they never went to Yelp. So Yelp's traffic just became zero. Like it became very, very low. So Yelp was like, bro, come on, don't do this. Just don't steal our content. Because think about it, stealing content. You're essentially pirating content. Just
Yeah.
because it's out in the open, you're essentially you could argue it's piracy, right? But Google is like, listen, uh, we believe in serving our customers, which are the SEO people, and we want to give them relevant information ASAP. This is their official sort of thing. Okay, we want to give them the most relevant information as easily as possible, and your information are there, so we give to them. If you're going to behave like this, we're going to delist you. So even if you type in Yelp.com, you'll probably be the fourth result. That kind of
Wow.
a thing.
Brilliant.
I'm not saying this happened because I didn't do all this, but essentially they threatened to delist Yelp. And a couple of years later, I think Yelp was sold to one company. I think Yahoo. I might be wrong. And then Yahoo itself doesn't exist anymore, and it's basically Yelp is gone. And this
Hmm.
was a company that was. I used to like. I used to watch iPhone launches like ever since I was a kid, and I found out when Yelp was gone, a small part of me was like, "Oh, sad."
I used to have
So,
an Yelp app on my phone, and I think it's the only app that deleted itself on my phone. Like it was just a shell of an app after a point.
hmm,
Like Flappy Bird, Flappy Bird was just a shell of an app, right? Yelp
yeah,
became like Flappy Bird on my phone.
because Google just exactly right. So when Google says, "Nah, I'll take care of it," everyone that was taking care of it before has to leave the game. Like another example is,
Hmm.
remember when you use Ookla speed test? Now Google has that speed testing. No one goes to Ookla for speed testing,
Yeah.
right? And that is and that's the thing, right? Google have become the gatekeepers to the internet. So if Google can do something, that is a lot of people, like for a lot of people, I'm sure Google is synonymous with the internet. And I'm literally saying that. Are you connected to Google? Are you connected to the internet? This can be a very synonymous thing at a particular point. Like even more
Like,
common thing is,
what is
what
something
do you
that
do to
you think
test
in the future
internet?
that Google could take over, like Ookla or?
At some point, this becomes synonymous, right? Connect being like at some, I'm pretty sure for some people, being connected to the internet and being connected to Google is the same sentence. Like, what is the first thing to do to see if you're connected to the internet? You Google search something. That's
Ah,
crazy.
yeah.
That's crazy. Just think of that metaphor. You're using a
No, no.
product.
I think it's an easier way to explain this, right? When you search something on the internet, you don't search something on the internet, you Google it.
Hmm.
It's like Xerox. Xerox is a company. Xerox is not a thing that you do. But
Yeah,
now to take a photocopy, you say you Xerox it.
correct.
And just like that, uh, you you today you don't like search something on the internet, you Google it.
Yeah. So these are the
I
kind
think
of things. Sorry, go on. My bad.
no, I think this is when you realize like the stronghold a company has in anything, right? Uh, like even today, we don't say you're going to Netflix something, you're going to Netflix a movie, you're going to stream a movie. So technically, Netflix is not exactly like Google. They still have a long way to go. But Google has already gone that long way. You Google something today.
True. It's there in the Oxford Dictionary. Google as a verb.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
no, what I was asking you before this was, what do you think like is another aspect that Google might take over soon? Like
Uh,
it's already taken over speed tests, it's already taken over
so
Yelp,
like it's very
it's already
hard
taken
to,
over
okay.
Maps.
I mean, one thing I think Google will be very slow now to take over things. Now that this whole antitrust, now the privacy angle was on them for a while. The antitrust thing is also there on them. They're really very careful with a lot of public moves from here on. But it's very hard to like. It's very hard because Google can implement something like this, and any small thing will go. Like the thing is, we can't even think of small things that we do now because Google does it, right? And like,
Money
sorry.
conversion. Oh, I don't know what they're going to take over in the future, but one thing they have taken over in the recent past is money conversion. If you guys remember, to convert money, you need to go to a website, and a website you need to key in what money you need, like what currency you need. Today, you can literally just type in uh, 1 USD equals 1 USD to INR, or 2000 USD to INR, or 7,000 rupees, or 7,000 INR to USD. And then Google will tell you the answer on Google's front page. You don't need to go to any website. And I can't even like imagine like what happened to all those websites that was their traffic. What happened to all those websites? And
Yeah.
I don't know, like probably weather. Weather is probably something that's going to go in the future to Google.
Oh, I mean, weather is already
Can you
if
Google
you
search weather?
yeah, you can. And if you're a desktop user, that's how you get your weather. I think only
Oh
iOS
wow.
has a really good weather app. That's the only reason people don't use weather. Only iOS people, but Android people essentially use Google Weather. And I mean, they don't use Google. I think Google takes data from AccuWeather. But now people have gotten
Huh.
smart, right? People learn from Yelp, right? There's something called APIs, and APIs is how well Google can do crazy things like just steal content. But for a regular person to do what Google did, they need to do something called APIs. So Yelp will send you information. So if you want information, if you're a company and you want to display the junior Kupna reviews on Yelp, you can actually ask Yelp, but you need to pay a small fee every time you ask.
Oh
So
wow.
now, yeah, so a lot of weather companies do that. So when you see that the Weather Channel or AccuWeather, there's actually APIs that are there, and for some of them you need to pay these companies for every time you call them. It'll be a small fee. It'll be like 0.0001 rupee per call, but that adds up for a company like Google, right?
Actually, I think Google will acquire this. I'll tell you why. Because Alphabet, the parent company of Google, actually owns a company called Loon. And
Hmm.
Loon is a company that launches which launches internet balloons. Okay, so these weather balloons are going to transform how we use the internet. I'll tell you why. This is going to be a small tangent, but I'll just explain. So right now, the biggest innovation in internet is 5G. But 5G is actually a huge problem for actually, for not for us as the health experts on the on the internet would say. It's not a health problem. It's a
Cute.
huge problem for the internet providers because 5G, if you know your basic science, is a very, very, very weak signal. That means if you keep at one end of your house, you will have no signal about two rooms or the other side of your house, and it will only work through one block. So if we want to connect an entire area, you would need about few dozen cell phone like 5G towers, or else it won't work. So what Google did about half a decade ago is they did research on how to do this easier. And obviously the easiest way is to put the tower as high as possible and rain down the 5G from the skies. And that's where Loon comes in. They are weather balloons, weather-ish balloons, which are, I think, a few kilometers up in the sky. And they just send the internet down to you. And you can reach remote areas where you wouldn't be able to install uh, a cell
Tower.
phone tower, 5G tower. It could be in the Himalayas. It could be anywhere you want it to be. It could be in the middle of a desert and you'd still be connected to the internet.
And 5G
Right.
internet, not some shit internet.
And 5G. And these balloons actually do have an inbuilt weather monitor.
Yeah, I mean, so Adi, so I think you have your answer as to what they will take over next. But but that's the thing, right? With Google in specific, they have done a great job with just integrating these products into their company. They didn't do the mistake Facebook did. Facebook just combined these products. Like Facebook and Instagram can exist together separately, but lot of Google products just can't exist without themselves. Like YouTube search is built on YouTube, on Google's search engine foundation, and Android especially, right? Like a lot of you guys may not know, Android is actually an open source operating system. That means anybody can just download it, anybody can just do anything with it. But the Android on your phone is a version that is sort of developed by Google, not developed by Google, or it works with this thing called GApps. That's short for Google Apps, right? And that's the version Google puts out each year. And this version is then taken by manufacturers and they skin it. That's why you have Samsung's UI, LG's UI, OnePlus's UI on top of it. And like we think so, Huawei, right? Huawei still can technically use this Android. Like Huawei is banned from doing business in the US, but they can technically use this Android operating system. They just can't use GApps, the Google apps, because Google is a
Oh,
American company,
oh,
so they can't do business with Google. But Android is open source, so they're allowed to do that.
oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
And again, right? So it's very hard to just remove Google out of the equation. And in fact, Google is one of, and again, you can say that is great business strategy and great corporate mastery, but it also brings about this thing, right? Okay, it's happened. What do we do as regulators now? If we break them, you'll actually hurt society. Maybe in the short term, maybe there's a possibility it will work out in the long run, but at the end of the day, you might actually hurt society because a lot of them depend. Like, let's say you separate Gmail and Google, you can't use the excellent search technology Google has inside Gmail to search for
Hmm.
email, or the AI that Google probably developed for Gmail. So it brings about this excellent piece of school of thought where you got to regulate big tech, but you don't need to break them up. So there'll still be these companies, but the way they just need better laws. And I'm just going to sort of go about some of the popular ones, right? The obvious one is that big tech companies should share all the data with smaller ones and all that. But again, there's a lot of that's, I think, is a very, very bad idea. There are from privacy concerns to putting a price on that data. Uh, it's just a big sham, and yeah, it's just not a good idea. But the other two ones I really like. I'm referring to this article on MIT Technology Review. So please go free to read it in your free time. But and the first of that being that Google shouldn't favor its own platforms. So let's say something second to YouTube is Vimeo, and both YouTube and Vimeo have good SEO. Google should sort of promote both of their links and things like that. And if, let's say Vimeo has a good video, it also needs to show Vimeo's video and things like that. and especially if its thing is relevance and content, it needs to probably work. If the company is willing to work with Google, it needs to present appropriate information. So that's one way you can sort of. And again, there are some drawbacks to this also, which is just saying you're strengthening this thing as a monopoly by not by giving it so much power. That's the counter argument. Uh, and the last one is stop tech companies. Sorry. Yeah, and the last solution proposed by most people is stop tech companies from locking in their users. This is a good example is something like Instagram, right? Let's say I have an Instagram, I post pictures and everything, and I want to leave Instagram. There should be a way where I can just port all that content to Twitter at the very minimum. I can't take my audience with me, but I should at least be able to take my content with me and move on to Twitter. Or I'm on YouTube. I should be able to port all that beautiful video I've made to Vimeo or something like that. So this is this locking in of users should be regulated by.
Just redo this.
Yeah, so this is why it's hard to break up Google, and a lot of people say that you should just regulate big tech and not break up big tech. And Google is an excellent example as to why, because you actually might end up harming a couple of people because so much of the planet uses Google, and all the services are interdependent, and that's really smart from their end as well. They probably planned this out, but at the end of the day, they haven't combined services, they've integrated them. And so if you break them up, you're breaking up all the services that they sort of have. And a couple of solutions people say when they want to regulate big tech is one of the common ones, but this breaks down very easily, is make this company share data with smaller ones. All the data they have, if they sort of share it to smaller ones, you won't have them as this powerful. But then again, this breaks down very quickly. There's the privacy concerns. Can this company put a price on users' data? There's a lot of issues there. Will the users be okay with it? They're already having issues with them selling it to advertisers. Will they have an issue with selling it directly to smaller companies? There are a lot of problems with this proposed solution. But the other two solutions are actually not too bad. Second one is usually that a tech company shouldn't discriminate for its own services. So if there is a video result that needs to be shown, Google shouldn't only favor YouTube. It should probably look at all these things. It should probably, if something like age restrictions turned off, it should probably show up Pornhub videos. It's a very doable thing. People shouldn't need to go to Pornhub and then look at porn. Right? Google is very much within the capability of showcasing quote unquote relevant porn for the user, right?
Yeah.
So this is and if you do this, you can sort of say, right, it's no longer a Google walled garden. That whole 63% of users, 63% of searches that begin in Google end in Google, that number will reduce largely, and that's a huge win from an antitrust perspective. And the third.
Wait,
one second. I'm paused. Play. Say.
No, imagine you just want to search for images, right? Imagine you want to search for a trailer, and Netflix posts these trailers, but Google will show you YouTube trailers before it shows you Netflix trailers for Netflix original movies. Which is technically a terrible thing to do, because Netflix needs analytics of on their own website. They need traffic on their own website for content that they produce, and the viewer will prefer that also. But instead, Google redirects you to YouTube.
Yeah, and Google has created an environment where it has to be on YouTube. It's more like that.
Yeah.
So exactly, that is the huge thing that will get solved if you go with you have to sort of regulate them favoring themselves. Again, we simply discussed this. It's very hard to regulate this and put this into law. Then you can be like, is it even possible to run something like Google? There are things like that. But that's why regulators are there, right? And the third solution is, tech companies should not be locking in their users. And this is something I really, really, really believe in. I really believe in a tight knit service. Users will just prefer if it's good, right? Something a lot of people like Google services also. Like even if what is locking in their user means? We sort of went over this in the first episode of the series. Essentially, like let's say I'm on Instagram and I want to move to Twitter. I should be able to port all my content there. I'm on YouTube. I have a bunch of videos. I should be able to port all my content to something like Vimeo. I shouldn't be locked into this ecosystem. And tech companies also do, like mobile operating systems also do this, right? You're on Android, it's very hard to get on iOS. You're on iOS, it's very hard to get on Android. But I really believe that if the service is good and you make it sensible for the customer will stay on your platform. Android is an actually very good example. There are a lot of people who can afford iPhones because iPhone's more expensive, right? That's the usual argument they say. That's why people buy Android. But there are a lot of people who can afford iPhones but prefer Android just because of the Google integration. Things like Google Photos just work better. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who can also afford great Android experiences but prefer iPhone. And sometimes they'll even pay more. Like they'll pay with some discomfort just to get the Apple experience of iMessage, iCloud, and all the beautiful things that Apple brings to the table. So people will stick to your service if you're good. And and partly that's the reason they're also good, because it's actually a competitive space there. This Android versus iOS thing is a competitive nature. And you can see why competition is important. There's no better example than that. There's a reason why people don't use Bing. Bing actually was a significant competitor to Google. Google just became so good, everybody started using Google, and now Google's a monopoly. But competition is good. Otherwise, search engines would have been at the standard that Bing is, which is terrible. So companies shouldn't be locking their users into one particular box. So like, if you use a bunch of Google services, or you should be able to access the internet without Google and things like that. That will really, I don't really, this particular example doesn't work well with Google, but these are just a couple of schools of thoughts as to how to regulate big tech without breaking them up. And Google is an excellent candidate to just regulate and not break up, in my opinion. What do you think, Adi?
See, I mean, all that is very true. Like, we can't break them, but we should have like a cross-platform idea where if I don't like Instagram after a point, I should have an option where I can take all my data from Instagram and then post it on whatever competitor there is. But right now that option does not exist. My photos that I'm posting, technically Instagram does not let me have them back. I need to have the original copy somewhere. And I can't, like, let's say I got like 200 views on my Instagram post, or I got 100 likes on my Instagram post. I can't even take that to another platform.
Yeah.
That is technically not right. See, and I think, wait, pause. See, to close this off as a good conclusion, this is a small story, right? So when Google was started, Google was started by Sergey Brin and Larry Page, and they started the company in this woman's garage who let it out for rent, and that woman was Susan Wachowski. I can't pronounce the last. Wachowski or whatever. Who is the current CEO of YouTube? And when Google was put in a rut, financial rut, Google had three very important investors called angel investors. And one of these angel investors was Jeff Bezos, who founded Amazon later. And another very important person who's not very well known is Ram Sriram, who is actually from Chennai. He's from Loyola College, who is right now worth $2.2 billion. But this is not the story. The most important aspect of the story, Google's motto used to be do. Wait, what? Google's motto used to be what?
Get the right information or something.
No, don't do evil, right? Wait,
let me find. Wait. You'll Google or wait?
Yeah, I'm
Google's old. Wait, I'll pause. Yeah.
So Google's motto and their phrase, which is used in Google's corporate code of conduct, used to be Don't be evil. But in 2015, as Google was being reconstructed as a subsidiary of Alphabet, they changed that motto to do the right thing. And if that does not signify how much the company has changed and how much their morals have changed, I think that is the best example of how Google became monopoly. Just that change. It's so small. It's a few words that changed. But now it raises the question. Don't be evil is a very simple thing, but do the right thing is a more complex thing. Who are they doing the right thing for? What exactly is the right thing? Is it going to be the right thing for today or tomorrow?
It's going to be the right thing for them or the consumer or competing businesses.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Who is it the right thing for?
yeah,
I think that's the best conclusion we can give to this, to
yeah,
Google.
exactly. So guys, next time you're accessing internet, just know you're accessing it through Google, because that's probably what you're going to do. And on that very, very creepy note, thank you so much for listening. Nandri.
Vanakkam.